Previously on Research, Rank, Repeat. Part 3.
Episode 3.
Episode 3.
Part 3 as well. Both are accurate.
Of Studio Ghibli.
Yep, Studio Ghibli, same thing, different pronunciation.
When I first saw it, it gave me, like, some Charlie Brown vibes.
Yes.
Like, animation style.
Prior to seeing all these films back to back to back, I probably would have said this is my favorite
Yeah.
Studio Ghibli film. I'm currently not sure.
Yeah.
It certainly holds up the same way that I remember it holding up.
I will say, Carl and Cash were obsessed with this film because they heard all the meowing. They were very into it.
Great.
Unfortunately, I was not. All right, Alyssa, are you ready to move on to Howl's Moving Castle?
I am.
Yes, Howl. I don't like that.
Did you want me to howl at the
No,
movie?
it was like, you know, when they used to go get 'em, tigers.
Rawr.
Or it's like that.
Yeah.
Wow. And then all the food moments.
God, oh my gosh, the breakfast.
Like the fried eggs.
When they were making the bacon and the eggs.
It looks so good.
That whole scene, I was like, this is what they do so well, are these like little small moments of just like living life.
You know what? I don't necessarily agree with the Rotten Tomato score. I
don't either.
Didn't find it like to be bad. I found it a bit confusing at times.
Yeah.
A bit hard to follow at times, but I didn't think it was necessarily like a bad movie. And she was a dragon? I looked away for like 5 seconds and then she was a dragon and I was like, did I miss something?
Well, because there's a part right where they're at the top of the castle.
Right.
And like he jumps and there's like that like transition water scene, which was really cool. I did like that scene. And then all of a sudden I was like, wait, why is there a dragon? I
swear I looked away for 2 seconds. I don't know what's happening.
I don't really know the right words to describe this film. This little child loves ham. She loves ham. She's obsessed with ham, which I'm like, I can't relate because I don't really
can't either. I don't like ham.
I don't really like ham, but I love the enthusiasm she has for ham. She's like, I want to eat ham.
Welcome. This is Research, Rank, Repeat. This is co-host Hannah.
This is co-host Alyssa, and we are back with our next episode of Studio Ghibli.
Yes.
Number 4.
Part 4.
Part 4. And we're almost to the end.
Yeah.
We're getting there.
The final stretch.
Never thought we'd see this day.
No.
Yeah, we technically, after this chunk is complete, we will have just one film left to do. And you can say we planned this to work out this way, even though we definitely were going to have this all up last year and early this year, but that's fine. We're going to ignore that. But yeah, we planned this because Studio Ghibli is releasing a new film in North America in December.
Yeah. So
we're going to be caught up and ready to see it when it comes out. Which is very exciting.
You know us, always prepared. Always planning ahead.
Always thinking the next step ahead. Yes. We're always ready.
Yeah.
That's that cocaine.
Sweet coke. Doesn't this Santa look like he's been doing cocaine?
Oh, definitely doing cocaine.
Shh, kids, don't tell your parents I've been doing coke.
Watch me snort this cocaine out my nostrils.
But anyways, back to Studio Ghibli and back to animated movies. Should we jump in?
Let's do it. Yeah, let's go on to our next film. Our first film of this set is called The Secret World of Arrietty, which was released in 2010. It has a rating of G and has a runtime of 1 hour and 35 minutes. And let me just say that, as always, most of my information was collected from our most trusted source, Wikipedia.
Yes.
As it always is.
Yes.
This movie is based on a novel called Arrietty the Borrower. Oh, sorry. It's also known as Arrietty the Borrower, based on the novel The Borrowers. It was a movie. It was a book. Anyway. In 1952, Mary Norton released the book, The Borrowers, and it has several adaptations already, in which I've actually seen at least one of the adaptations. I think it was called The Borrowers. John Goodman was the dad in that movie that I remember watching. It's like an 80s or 90s movie. Miyazaki and Studio Ghibli had actually wanted to adapt this book into a film for almost 40 years. Wanted to do it. And I think they just couldn't find the right story or something. I don't know. I guess that's all I wrote down. I thought I wrote down more about it, but apparently I didn't, and that's fine. Anyway, so it is a Japanese animated fantasy film, and it was directed by Hiromasa Yonobayashi, who was a first-time director with the studio, and also the youngest director with the studio. I believe he was 36 at the time the film was released. The screenplay for the film was written by Hayao Miyazaki and Kaiko Niwa, and the film's score and theme song were done by Cécile Corbel, I believe is her name. She's a French and Brento singer that after she released an album, she made a second album and sent some of the samples to people that she had admired, one of those being Studio Ghibli. And the producer of pretty much most of these films, Toshio Suzuki, during production wanted a Celtic-inspired theme for this film. And so it was just chance that she had happened to send the samples in, and she heard back within 10 days. He heard them and he was like, hey, I would like to work with you. And she was originally just supposed to do the theme song, but they liked her so much that she ended up doing the entire score as well. And it's the first time that they had worked with a non-Japanese composer. So I thought that was pretty noteworthy.
Interesting.
So the other thing that I think is really interesting about this film is that it actually had two dubs. It had an English American dub, and it had an English British dub. And it actually is the cinematic debut of Tom Holland.
Oh, interesting.
It was his first film that he was in. And the British dub, in my opinion, has a much better voice cast than the American dub, which is the version that I watched. And I'll talk more about that later. But one thing of note is specifically with the American dub, they westernized all of the names of the characters. So in the British dub, they did not do that. And normally in the English dubs that Disney does, they don't actually change the names. So I was trying to see if there was any reason why they decided to do that just for this film, but I didn't really find anything specific. But that was something that I thought was interesting. And the film garnered positive reviews. It was the highest grossing film in Japan of 2010. It made $145 million worldwide. It won the Animation of the Year award at the Japan Academy Prize. And it was a 7.5 million people saw the film in theaters, which is the record number of people at a theater for a first-time director. So they held, I don't know if that's specifically in Japan.
Yeah.
I think it's specifically for Japan, but that's like a pretty significant feat for someone to have.
Right.
It is the fourth highest grossing anime film in the US, which it's the only, and I guess the first film not based on a game franchise.
Interesting.
So that's a pretty also interesting that this film in itself got a bunch of promotion. It opened in 1,522 theaters in the U.S., which was also a record at the time. So really was heavily pushed in...
Please don't do that right now. Or ever. Let go. Okay, thank you.
But so it was really heavily pushed in the United States, and I'm wondering if that's why they gave all the Western names and they, had two different versions of the film. So it has a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, an 80 out of 100 on Metacritic, a 7.6 out of 10 on IMDb, and a 3.8 out of 5 on Letterboxd. All right, so now for the summary, which comes from Max. Just Max. Good old Max. Arrietty and her family live out of sight from humans, but she strives but she strikes an unlikely friendship when she meets a human boy.
This is Ghibli's A Bug's Life meets Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Yeah.
You know what actually really reminded me of It Takes Two, the video game we've been playing?
Oh, yeah, it is a lot like that, yeah.
I knew nothing about this movie.
I knew a little bit, because I remember, like, so 2010, I have a very distinct memory of seeing trailers for this, like, everywhere, and clearly seems like they heavily pushed it in the US, so I'm not surprised that I am least familiar, and I know, like, I don't think I've read The Borrowers, I may have, but it's been so long, but there was a version, I think, called The Borrowers, and it came out in, like, the 90s, and John Goodman is in it, and I, like, vaguely have some memories of that, so, like, I'm kind of familiar with this adaptation. Right. People also compare it to, like, Fern Gully. Okay. Which is also a film that I've seen before. It's got similar vibes to that. I
do like the, like, adventure aspect of it. I think it's cool. I think they were able to do a lot of cool animation stuff with the different, like, proportions and, like, the different sizes. I will say, though, like, I liked the first half, like, when it was just her and her dad, a lot. Yeah. I kind of feel like when the boys' story arc came in, it kind of, like, ruined it a little bit for me.
Yeah, I think I would agree that I liked the first half of this film better than the second half.
It felt more... I don't know, like, I really liked the girl and the dad's, like, interactions, and I thought, like, the dad's character had a little bit of a weird arc at the end. Like, I thought it was going one way because he said something about, like, you don't always have to run away, you can, like, look and observe and then decide, but then, like, the rest of the movie he was, like, very against it. I don't know. I enjoyed the first half a lot more. I think the ending was a little bit odd and, like, rushed.
Yeah. So, I mentioned that I watched this in the English dub, the American dub, and I told Hannah, I was like, 'cause she hadn't seen it yet after I'd watched it, so I was like, don't watch the English dub. And the reason that is I just genuinely didn't like the voice acting. Yeah. No offense to the people who are acting. The only people I thought did good were Will Arnett was her dad, and Amy Poehler. Amy Poehler was her mom, and Carol Channing was Haru. Yeah. I think she's sort of like a housekeeper of the house that they're living in. The adult cast was good, but the child cast, especially, and again, no offense to David Henry, who's from Wizards of Waverly Place, played, also his name was Sean. Yeah. In the, is it Shu?
Shu... Wait.
I don't know what his name. Yeah, I don't know what. That's the problem. Is I don't know what any of their names are. They're supposed to be because. But anyway, Sean, the sick boy who has a heart operation coming up. I just was not sold on his voice acting for the character. Okay. So that's also why I don't think I necessarily loved the second half of the film either. Once he is pretty much a main character alongside Arrietty.
Right, okay.
This is the only time this has happened where I feel like I would have probably enjoyed the film more if I watched it in Japanese or had watched the British dub. Show. Okay, show. So Sean, show. I wasn't really into, I don't know, his character was, I don't know if it's specifically because of the voice acting, but I just, like, wasn't really into his character.
You know what, though? I wasn't into it in the Japanese version.
And again, like, he's, clearly does not have an optimistic view of life because he's pretty much, like, has not, like, a death sentence, but is undergoing, like, an operation that's going to potentially kill him. It's possible. Yeah. So I get that.
He was also, like, kind of creepy. Like, he left a note, and it was like, you forgot something. But it, like, in my head, I heard it as, like, Liam Neeson, like, good luck. Like, I heard it, like, as, like, a murderer. But I wasn't really into his character in the Japanese version, so I don't know that is on David Henry. I think that's just the character.
Yeah, I guess that's fair, if you also felt the same way.
And that's why I think when he came into the movie, it kind of, like, took me out of the film a little bit.
Yeah. Positives, though, I think the score really worked with this film. I thought it definitely was distinct. I can definitely hear, like, the kind of Celtic influence that they were looking for. Clearly, like, they wanted that dynamic, and I liked the themes that were written for the film. And I also really liked and I think it's much more prominent in the first half of the film, like the quietness and like the way they shot them like in, you know, a human world inside the house, like this equipment they had, things they used to navigate and things they picked up. So I really liked that stuff, and the focus on that, I think, worked with those scenes worked really well and were really engaging.
Yeah.
But then, like, the overarching story of them needing to move and find a new home, I didn't, particularly, like, love that. I thought it was just not as engaging as I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a bad film. I just don't think it was... It's not what I wanted, I guess, is maybe. And that's hard also because it's adapted from a book, so...
Yeah.
There's
only so much
liberty you can take, yeah.
I think, it kind of... It was weird because it was going... In the direction it was going was making me think that they would end up staying.
Okay.
There was this, like, dollhouse, or this house that had been built by... It had been in this family for, like, a very long time. And, like, that's kind of how I thought the film was going to go. And they had the whole thing of, like, the housekeeper who was, like, really creepy and trying to, like, snatch them. They basically just, like, everyone was like, okay, well, you're insane, and this is whatever. And then they ended up leaving, and I get that, but it just, I don't know. It felt a bit disjointed in the second half from the first half. Like, it almost, like, was like two different films.
Kind of.
And they kind of, like, didn't... I don't know, there was some, like, disconnect between the first half and the second half that
oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, that was it. That there was just some disconnect that was bothering me.
I think that also maybe part of the disconnect is that I just didn't necessarily buy the relationship between Sho and Arietti.
Yeah.
Like, I felt like they didn't really have the, like, developed dynamic that I would have wanted for those two characters. And I feel like they've done... things like the relationships like that better.
Yeah. That's like one of Ghibli's strengths is these like relationships that they portray. And yeah, he was just very much like the whole time like, you're the only people left, you're gonna die. Like all this stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. I was way more engaged in the relationship between like the dad and Arietti.
I would agree.
And I think that's kind of why I was like, I would have wished to see more of that towards the end. But I don't know. It wasn't a bad film. It just there was something not there, or some weird thing that just made me kind of disconnect from the movie.
Yeah. All right.
Do you have anything else you want to do favorites?
I don't think so. The only other things that I have notes on are things that are part of like my favorite stuff. So probably I think I'm good.
Okay. I favorite character I went with Arietti.
I did as well.
I just think she's like independent and wants to be able to go out on her own and be her own person, and I feel like she like believes the best in people, which her parents are kind of very like weary for good reason, but I feel like she kind of has this almost like naiveness that allows her to like believe the best in people. But yeah, I also do love like a female character who's like, I'm gonna go do it on my own.
She kind of reminds me of Rapunzel's character from Tangled. I feel like, because she's also very isolated. Like, she's not met any other borrowers, and she's an only child, so she just lives with her parents and no one else. And doesn't really have a lot of exposure. So, like, I feel like, but she has, like, the curiosity and the, like, drive and desire to understand the world, and I think she does have naiveness, like you said.
Right.
But I liked her... like, willingness to do things and also, like, recognizing her faults, and, like, appreciating her relationship with her dad, I think. Yeah. That they got that dynamic down. Yeah. I think that worked really well.
Yeah, definitely. So, favorite scene. I really like the scene when they come back from her first, like, borrowing and she didn't get the sugar and... her dad's like, oh, well, show your mom what you found. Like, he kind of just, like, brushed it off. Like, oh, we didn't have time. The light ran out. We didn't have time. Like, basically kind of, like, giving her an out.
Yeah.
But then he was like, well, show your mom, like, what you found. And, like, kind of trying to spin it positive. So I just really liked it. And I think I just really liked the dynamic between the two of them. So I think that I just appreciated that scene.
What are you doing?
He's just like posing on the couch.
He's really posing for a painting. Paint me like one of your French girls. My goodness. All right.
Okay. Anyways.
Yeah, my favorite scene is also kind of in that, just like their journey into the house for her first borrowing. I really liked a lot of, like I kind of said earlier, but I liked a lot of the quietness of that scene. I liked the dynamic between her and her dad, and just like the way they were able to shoot the like small versus normal size stuff to give that like scope. I thought was well done. So I really liked that.
Yeah. I did have a line, I kind of mentioned it, but it was the dad saying, like, you don't always have to run, observe them first, and then decide, kind of being, like, be cautious, but, like, you don't have to, like, panic right away. I kind of like that, like, advice he gave her.
Yeah. Mine's, not serious, because I thought it was funny, when she's talking to, Show, okay, Sean. She's talking to Sean. It was so funny to hear her go, Sean! I was like, yep, Sean. She was like, we only, take things that we need. Or, we borrow things, we don't steal things. Soap, cookies, and sugar, all things we need to survive. And I'm like, honestly, I support that.
Yeah.
I, too, need soap, sugar, and cookies to survive. So, I'm on board with that. I just thought that was a funny line, so...
Yeah. So for Ghibli moment, there was this part where she was being, like, chased by a crow, and Sho, like, grabbed her from the, like, windowsill to help her, and it got, like, quiet.
Oh, yeah.
Just, like, dead silence, and it was just, like, this, like, 2 to 3 second moment, but I really liked how they just dropped all the noise, and then it was just, like, the visual and, like, the facial expressions. I think that's something Ghibli does well, and that's also something that the mouse...
Yes.
does well, that we've talked about, like, the quiet moments.
Right.
But yeah, so I just appreciated that choice.
Yeah, I liked that scene a lot. The one that I picked, because I felt like it gave me that sense of, I don't know, wonder that I get with certain Ghibli scenes, but it's when his aunt is showing him the dollhouse, like the inside, and they're, like, opening the rooms, and just, like, the attention to detail, and the soundtrack, and the way they shot, like... just, like, still images of, like, that house, and you could feel, like, his aunt being, like, you know, this was intended to be, like, they're all modeled to real size, they all work, like, it was, like, so, your mom was so, like, believed so heartedly that, like, they would come and use the house, and I just really liked the, like, it was a very charming scene, so that one I felt like was the most, like, oh.
Yeah, I really like that scene, too. That was, like, my runner-up Ghibli moment. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Let's just move on. Okay, the next movie, From Up on Poppy Hill. This movie is rated PG, came out in 2011. It was an hour and 31 minutes. Has a 7.4 out of 10 on IMDb, 87% in Rotten Tomatoes, and box office was 61.5 million. The director was Goro Miyazaki, and it was written by Hayao Miyazaki and Kiko Niwa. This is based on the 1980 serialized manga of the same name. So there's like a bit of historical background in this, so I'm just going to dive into a little bit of that.
Please do.
So following Japan's defeat in the Second World War, Japanese ships were taken under control by the Supreme Commander for the Allied Powers.
Okay.
And then at the start of the Korean War, those ships, and then with Japanese crews, were put into service by the U.S. military to carry forces and supplies to Korea. And according to estimates, 56 Japanese sailors and laborers were killed in the Korean War zone. That was just in the first 6 months. There's a lot of officials that estimate the total number of Japanese killed in the Korean War have never actually been published. And the U.S. and Japanese governments have never officially recognized the role of Japanese non-combatants in the war.
Okay.
Good times.
Yeah, love that.
Oh, another thing they mentioned was like that in the 1960s, not just in Japan, but around the world, a lot of students started getting more into like activism and like doing like marches or, you know, protests or like doing a lot of different activism work. That was kind of like a worldwide thing that happened.
Yeah. And
that was kind of seen in this film. So this film's production was affected by the blackouts after the 2011 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami. They said a lot of the production got delayed because there were so many blackouts they couldn't keep up with the production, but they did get it out. they wanted to get it out in 2011 and they still managed to, so it wasn't horribly...
Not a huge delay.
Wasn't horribly delayed.
Okay.
Okay, so this film was one of the Japanese films that was showcased at the 2011 Toronto International Film Festival. And with this movie, it was not distributed by Disney in North America. That was the first time that a Studio Ghibli film had not been distributed by them since Princess Mononoke?
Princess Mononoke.
Princess Mononoke.
Princess Mononoke. Yeah.
It was actually distributed by G Kids, which I've heard of before.
Yeah.
So Disney, for some reason, decided they weren't going to distribute it.
Okay.
And it had a very limited theatrical release in North America as well.
Okay.
I wonder if it has anything to do with, like, the historical context of it, like
maybe,
or if it was just like whatever choice they had made.
I know that when I was the next film that we did, they talked a little about it, but the contract between Disney and Studio Ghibli, like for the North American rights, like had expired at some point in the teens. I don't. So I'm
wondering if this was around.
I don't remember what year it was, but I know like at least the next film that came out, like 2 years later, they mentioned that Disney still distributed it and did that stuff, even though they maybe didn't have the contract. So maybe it was something with that. Yeah.
It could be. But this was considered a pretty good commercial success, especially compared to, oh god, I forgot the name. Goro's first film
Tales
he did.
Of Earthsea.
Tales of Earthsea. This movie got a lot better praise and a lot better, in terms of like box office numbers and the numbers it drew in, it had a lot better of a rating. This was all from Wikipedia.
Of course.
Okay, for a summary. As Japan recovers from World War II, friendship blossoms between classmates Umi and Shun, but a buried secret from their past cast a shadow on the future. I thought it was weird they called it friendship, because it definitely was more than friendship.
Friendship, in quotes.
Definitely was a relationship.
What a wild movie. Let's just get into it first and foremost. There's an incest plotline.
Yeah.
We'll start with that. Let's just start there. Sorry, for anyone who's watching or listening to this, if you are trying to avoid spoilers, I hope you're not under the impression that we talk about everything.
We spoil everything.
You know, we don't do like go beat by beat the entire story, but we'll definitely not shy away from talking about important plot elements and things like that. And my notes, Hannah, are insane. Like, at first I'm like, basically, you've got these two characters, and they have a friendship that starts to develop, and then clearly you can kind of see the, you know, they seem to have
kindling of romance.
Kindling feelings. And then he sees a picture of her dad, and has some confusion.
Yes.
And my first thought was, okay, did their dads have beef or something? Like, was there an issue between their fathers?
That's what I was
maybe
thinking.
He recognizes him or knows something. Because the main character, Umi's father, has died. She is one of the Japanese sailors who was killed in the Korean War.
Yes.
I was like, maybe it's something with that. Then he's with his dad, and he's like, is this man my dad? And he's like, we've gone over this, I'm your father, like basically insinuating that like they might have the same father. Right. And then they're like, we have the same dad, and so they kind of like don't talk for a little bit, but then I was not prepared. No. She's like, I don't care if we're siblings, I'm in love with you, or like, I'm in love with you, or something like that. And I was like, what is happening?
Yeah, because my notes literally go, does he know the dad? So he does. Wait, he's his dad, so they're half siblings. And then I said, or actual siblings. Wait, so they aren't related. They are related. Like, it was a lot.
Yeah, their dad's got beef. I'm not sure what the issue is. Oh no, not siblings. What the fuck? I was not prepared for a Studio Ghibli incest plotline at all. Oh, thank God. It's just an overly convoluted plotline. So in the end, they end up not being related. So in case you were concerned.
It was very confusing, though, because, like, she talks to her mom about it, and then her mom meets his dad at a coffee shop, and then they find a general on a ship who can explain. Like, it was just a lot.
It was a lot, yeah.
It was very, like, confusing. I just kept going back and forth. And part of me is, like, that all, like, deterred me from the plot, because I felt like this movie's interesting, because the main plot of this movie is that they're trying to save this, like...
It's like a boys' clubhouse.
Right, like this old clubhouse, and it houses all their clubs, like... and they're trying to, like, preserve it and save it. And that's, like, this main plot. But then you have this side plot of, like, just mass confusion. And I think it, like, drew me away from the main plot. And, like, when I think back on this movie, all I can think about is, like, the confusion.
Yeah.
Like, that's part of my issue. And, like, there were parts I liked.
I still think it's a good movie because I will say I was drawn into the story. I, like, was not bored because I was like, where is this going? I was like, this studio cannot, like... It's rated PG,
right?
You know,
I think it's a good film in that it, like, definitely catches your attention. I just think it's very, like, it reminds me a lot of, like, the 2010s, like, high school drama TV shows where there's just a lot of, like, a lot happening and a lot of, like, very confusing plot lines. Yeah. But I don't know. It's hard. This one's hard to figure out where I'm gonna place because it's I don't know.
I would agree that I think the two plot lines don't kind of feel a little disjointed at times. Because I liked both of them, but, like, separately and not together.
They don't mesh.
The one thing that I was having a hard time with, and we had kind of talked about this a little before, is that I was having a hard time understanding relationships between characters.
Yes.
Because you get Umi, and she has two siblings.
Right.
Her mom is away. She's
in America.
A doctor. She's studying.
Yes.
Her dad is dead.
Yes.
She's living with her grandmother.
Right.
But she also has, I believe, cousins.
Yeah,
but they never call them cousins.
Yeah.
And then there's also maybe another cousin who is a doctor who comes back for, like, some event or something, like graduates med school. And then you have the ship captain, and he's like, here's me in this photo with your dad, and here's us in a photo. And it was really hard sometimes for me to keep all these relationships set. Like, one of her friends looked a lot like her sister.
That's what I thought.
So I kept thinking her sister and her friend were the same person, but they weren't.
Yeah.
Because they had very similar hairstyles and a very similar look, and they're all wearing school uniforms, so it's like... So there was definitely some confusion between that aspect, and I was having a hard time keeping the characters straight.
Yeah, I would agree.
But I did think a lot of it worked well.
Yeah.
That's why I also agree. I think this one is going to be a hard one for me to rank.
Yeah.
Because I like the film. I think it does a lot of things well. It kind of, like, feels like the school element kind of feels similar to, like, Whisper of the Heart a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, that element of, like, school. There's some things that I really liked, and there's some things that I was confused about, and then I was distraught.
Yeah.
when I was like, where is this plot line going? I'm on a roller coaster of emotions.
Yeah, it's, like, weird because I still don't really know how I feel about it. Like,
yeah,
I feel like it was all over the place, and I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm gonna have to think on this one before I rank it because I genuinely don't know.
I will say something I really liked: the jazzy soundtrack.
Yeah, it was
really
cool.
liked the soundtrack. Yeah. Do you know? Did our resident Joe Hisaishi do it, or was it somebody else? Do you know?
Let me check because I did not. I don't think
I'm just curious because it felt like a lot of the newer Studio Ghibli films all have very distinct sounding soundtracks,
right?
In a way that is nice. It's nice because I feel like a lot of them were relatively similar of the older movies. You know, it was a lot of piano, a lot of, like, swelling scores, but these ones I felt like have been pretty distinct, like, between Secret World of Arrietty and Poppy Hill.
Right. Music was done by Satoshi Takabe.
Okay.
So not
Joe
Hisaishi.
But I noticed it was, like, very jazzy.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it worked really well with the film.
Right.
I felt like the style was, and I don't know if it's because of the time period it takes place, if that's why they chose that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it feels different than a lot of the other Ghibli movies, and it may be because of the soundtrack. But there was definitely, like, it felt different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Who was your favorite character?
I went with Umi, but it was a close tie between Umi and Shun.
Okay.
I thought they both were very compelling.
Yeah.
I liked a lot of things about both of them. I really think Umi works well as a lead because she clearly is, like, an oldest sibling and basically is in charge while her mom's away and her dad is dead. So she has a lot that she does. And her grandmother makes a comment about it, like, do you think you're doing too much? Yeah. Like, because you're in school and you're also, like, helping around in the house and you're doing all this other stuff. in charge of a lot. And I thought that I liked that, you know, you have that element of her being, like, very busy, but she also has, like, clearly drive and wants to help and, like, make change. And so I liked that, and, like, the dynamic between her and Shun's relationship, minus the incest possibility part. The other stuff I liked a lot.
Yeah.
And I just like Shun as a character because he was very, like, outgoing and, like, you know, opinionated.
Yeah, I picked Shun. I thought, I don't know, I thought his character was interesting. I also thought he was very, like, there was a lot of, like, realism in how he reacted to everything. He kind of, like, kept distance from her for a while because, like, I think he had to process everything, and also he's like, oh, okay, like, this could be my sister.
Right.
Yeah, so I think his reactions seem pretty realistic. I think, too, like you said, he's pretty charismatic, and, like, he's clearly passionate about what it is that he's doing, and I just think that his character, like, adds a lot to the story and, like, brings, like, what am I trying to say? Like,
breath of fresh air.
Yeah, and he kind of, like, draws you in.
Yeah.
His character. So, yeah, I was kind of between the two of them, but I think I liked his character a little bit more.
Yeah.
I had a favorite line. It was kind of a joke line.
Okay.
At one point, this girl just yells, "Math club freak!" And I was like, yeah, that's an insult.
That's funny because I did the opposite where last time I had the funny line. So I think it's Shun who says it, but it's when they're basically having a debate about tearing down this clubhouse, and he says, destroy the old and you destroy our memory of the past. And I thought that was I liked that, like, that sentiment that basically it was like we can't only think of the future, we have to also be reflective of the past as well. So I liked that, and I thought that worked well.
Okay. A favorite scene, there was the scene towards the end, it was like a flashback scene of, like, the father, and it had, like, this piano montage playing, and I just really liked the change in the animation that they did, and also, like, the music tied together.
Part of that was my favorite, like, Ghibli moment.
Okay.
I agree for the same reason. I liked the change in the style and the way it felt. It was like that, and like the one dream sequence that followed, like, that was right in the same one as it. I thought it was really well done. My favorite scene, though, was actually when they get to the clubhouse and you're just, like, walking all the floors and, like, looking at all the rooms and all the different clubs. I thought that was really, like, whimsical and, like, well done, and kind of set the stage for, like, that plot of like trying to save this clubhouse, because you can see, like, it's filthy, and, like, these boys are like the Philosophy Club is one guy, and he's like, come join me, like, and they're like, oh, we gotta go, see ya, bye. But I thought that was really, like, I liked that setup of that location, because it made it seem very, like, full of life, and, like, you know, basically making the point, like, oh, it's, even though it's old, like, it has charm, and it has value. Yeah, I also love how they did, like, a classic 2010s, like, montage, like, sports montage, where it's like, this is the team getting better. It was like, this is the home getting fixed. Yeah. But yeah. I did like that too. So Ghibli moment, it was kind of like, it had to do with the intro, which is, like, the jazzy music intro. Yes. And then they also, like, halfway or three-fourths of the way through the movie, they, like, kind of do a callback to the intro music. Yeah. And I really liked how those, like, it tied the whole movie together, I felt like. Yeah. So I did a little double dip on the Ghibli moment. So the first one was that, like, kind of dream sequence, the father moment, but then my other one was just the intro of the film. I really liked the lack of dialogue and just the jazzy opening and, like, the somebody getting ready for the day and kind of setting the stage for the, like, the family dynamic and the character. And so I agree. I really liked that as well. Cool. All right. Well, that one is done. Move on to our next film. It is called The Wind Rises, and it is surprisingly rated PG-13, which I didn't think it would be. It was released in 2013, and it has a runtime of 126 minutes, which is 2 hours and 6 minutes. So this is an animated historical drama film that was written and directed by Hayao Miyazaki. So it is based on a manga that he wrote from 2009 to 2010, and it is a fictional biographical film, or, like, the manga, about Jiro Horikoshi, who was an aircraft designer. He worked for Mitsubishi and designed the AM5 and A5M and A6M0, which were planes that were used in World War II specifically. So the music from this film was done by Joe Hisaishi, who standard, he's in a lot of these films.
Yes.
Love to see him. And it also features a song by Yumi Matsutoya. I believe the song is called Hiko Kigumo, which was written in 1973, and it was selected because the producer of the film thought that it sounded like Wind Rising, so he thought it would be a good addition to the end of the film. And the artist had actually worked with Studio Ghibli before. She had written the song themes for Kiki's Delivery Service, so they had already worked with her before, so I think it was easy to get permission to use that song. So it was the highest grossing Japanese film in 2013, and it made 11.6 billion yen in the box office, which is $113 million. Mm-hmm. And it was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature and a Golden Globe for Best Foreign Language Film. And it didn't win either of those, but it did win the Japan Academy Prize for Animation of the Year. And it also won, I forgot to write it down, but they won for some other, like maybe an Annie Award or something. Okay. Miyazaki specifically, and we kind of talked about this when we talked about Ponyo, but he wanted to create a sequel to Ponyo. Okay. Was what film he wanted to work on next, so instead of this film. But he was encouraged to adapt his manga by Toshio Suzuki, and Miyazaki initially didn't want to do that because this was kind of just a hobby, like this manga he wrote was a hobby and not really intended for a film. And he also, which I thought was really interesting, thought he didn't think that the material was suitable for children, which is like, you made he specifically did not make Grave of the Fireflies, but your studio made Grave of the Fireflies. Suzuki said that children should be exposed to things that they aren't familiar with, as basically like an argument like, well, why can't it be for children? I think then he agreed. And so this film was actually also supposed to be a double feature with the next film that we'll cover, which is called The Tale of Princess Kaguya. And it was going to be the first time there was a double feature with Takahata and Miyazaki films since Grave of the Fireflies and My Neighbor Totoro. But what happened is that The Tale of Princess Kaguya ended up getting delayed by 6 months, so they were not released together. They were released 6 months apart. Okay. The other thing that this film has is that there's some controversy over some of the depiction of war and tobacco, specifically. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of controversy of the tobacco use. There's lots of smoking, but I feel like that's accurate to the time period, so I really don't care about that. There was also some controversy over from Korean audiences over the fact that there was a lot of Korean forced labor that assembled Japanese planes for World War II. And Miyazaki, I didn't read the specific statement, but basically he's always been very anti-war and a self-described pacifist, so he basically made the argument that by telling a story about someone designing the planes doesn't necessarily mean that he was responsible for, it's not like a pro-war story in his eyes, because he's just, clearly, we know Miyazaki from talking about him, he has a fascination with planes. Mm-hmm. And so it's more so about that and less so about war. But he does still cover, the what happened because of these planes being made and, the impacts of war. It has an 88% on Rotten Tomatoes, an 83 out of 100 on Metacritic, 7.7 out of 10 on IMDb, and a 4.1 out of 5 on Letterboxd. So now for the summary. Mm-hmm. A chance encounter leads an accomplished airplane desire to love amidst rumors of war in 1920s Tokyo.
Yeah, we just finished watching this.
Yeah, we maybe an hour ago or so.
It's interesting. It's one of those movies that covers such a long span of time. It follows the main character from him being a child to him being in his 30s, 40s, something like that. Those films are always interesting, how they do the span of time. And there were a couple moments where I was how much time has actually passed? Right. Because it can get a little bit confusing. But I do think the story itself is kind of simplistic yet realistic. There's a lot of realism in this story, and it's kind of one of those it's a sad story.
Yeah, it honestly felt, and it might be just because they both take place around the same time, but it honestly felt a lot like Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
Not as intensive in the way that
Yeah.
it's delivered, but a similar type of story of somebody who is like a genius who is creating something that's ending up being used for mass
Right.
destruction.
Yeah, and you kind of see, like, at the end how he's like, none of my planes returned. Like,
Right.
and kind of throughout the movie, there's this message of, like, what are your planes going to be used for?
Right.
Like, and he's like, I just like to design beautiful planes. Like, there's,
Right.
like, this sort of, like, not like, I guess kind of like a moral dilemma of, like,
Yeah.
he wants to design planes, but then it's like he doesn't have much control over what they're used for or
Right.
what ends up happening.
It's, depicted in a way of, like, he's not designing the planes for a war, he's
Right.
designing the planes that are used for
Right.
a war, kind of deal.
Yeah, and then, I mean, obviously there's this sad story with his wife who has tuberculosis and ends up dying at the end. Well, we don't see her die, but she...
It's implied. Yeah, it's implied that she dies, yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think it's... I really did like the characters in this movie.
I did too.
I felt like they made it so that the focus was on a couple characters, and that I think really benefited. They brought some side characters in and out, but I think focusing on, like, a couple main characters made it a lot easier to follow as opposed to the last movie where we were like, who is who?
Right.
So I think that was good. And it was kind of, like, interesting because it was like he wasn't portrayed as, like, a perfect person because he was coming home super late and his wife was just, like, laying in a room all day sick, and I don't know. I think it was interesting. I don't fully know how I feel about it yet because it was so new and fresh.
Yeah.
But I thought it was interesting.
I agree. I think that I liked that the aspect of a lot of the quietness in the film. I think that there's some times when they were very flashy with the way they showed things and described things, and then there were some times where they were very quiet and somber. Like, because a lot of the film is, like, testing planes, and sometimes the plane crashes are very, like, loud and there, and then there's, like, one specific one where you don't even see the, like,
Right.
it happens, like, after the fact, like, you see the crash of the plane and what happened, and it was a very quiet moment. So I liked a lot of the, I don't know, like, the dreaming, the, like, I don't know what the right word I'm looking for is, but that it was focused on, like, Jiro and, like, his love of airplanes, you know, his desire to be design them because he has bad eyesight, so he can't be a pilot. So he's like, can I still make planes even though I can't fly them?
Yeah.
And his, like, dedication and drive towards that, and just, like, there's this one scene where they're eating fish and he finds, like, a mackerel bone, and he's, like, so transfixed on that being an element of a plane, like a wing, basically,
it's, like,
looking at,
curved.
because the way the curvature of it is, and just, like, the way that he can look at something and see, like, flight in that.
Right.
So a lot of those moments I thought worked really well together. One thing I did say, and we had mentioned it while we were watching it, is that, like, I wish they would have done a little more with his family.
Yeah.
Because you get mainly just a younger sister.
Right.
And she, like, I forgot he had a sister
Yeah.
until, like, the last 30 minutes of the film, because she shows back up, and I'm like, oh yeah, right, he has a sister. So I feel like maybe there could have been, like, a little, like, maybe it should have shown up, like, one or two more times. It maybe would have, you know.
It almost, like, her reaction to the wife is so, like, rightfully sad, but it's like, in our sense, she's only met the wife, like, one time, because that's what it seems like.
Yeah.
And yeah, you do forget that he has, like, a family and stuff, so that was, I would agree. I think I would have liked to see the sister, like, one or two more times.
Yeah. But, like, otherwise, yeah, I really don't have many complaints about the film. I feel like it was designed to tell a story a certain way, and I feel like it did a good job in doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it knew what it was. Like,
Yeah.
it didn't feel... It felt like it knew what the purpose was and what it was, and, like, stuck to that throughout the movie.
I forgot, I also should mention that this was intended to be Hayao Miyazaki's retirement from filmmaking.
Yes.
And a lot of people mentioned that it felt like a retirement film. Like, it felt like he was taking a bow and creating this film
Yeah.
to be his exit.
He said, you thought.
And he said, guess what, bitch?
Psych.
I'm back. And guess what? He's like, just kidding, I'm making another movie, which is coming out soon, next month.
Respect it.
It already is out in Japan, and I know it's reviewing well, so he's still got it.
Yeah.
But we'll have to see when we actually go to see it in a bit.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Yeah.
Overall, I think a good film.
I think so too, yeah.
Okay. My favorite character was Jiro.
I agree.
I feel like it
would be hard to not pick
him.
because
he is he's the main focus of the entire film, and it's all about his entire life, and
right.
He's definitely like a very captivating character, and I feel like easy to root for.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's hard to not pick him.
Plus, also, we watched the English dub, and it's Joseph Gordon-Levitt, so he has a nice voice.
I would have loved to pick John Krasinski. His character was pretty good.
I did like his friend.
Yeah. But yeah, so favorite scene. I picked the scene where he's at like this hotel in the summer, and he's got these paper airplanes, and he's trying to like figure out the best, trying to figure out getting creative inspiration, stuff like that. And so there's like this montage where he's like throwing all these different airplanes, and he's with the girl. I can't remember her name.
Nanako? No. 1 minute.
The woman he ends up marrying.
Yeah. 1 minute. I had just looked at
it. Yeah, I
did
not write her name down.
Naoko?
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's like this whole montage of them, and I just thought it was like a cute scene, and it was cool to see like his creativity and his inspiration come back.
Yeah, I picked the same scene as well. I thought that was really well done, because it basically what happens is he designed this plane and it crashed after testing it, so they basically send him to go relax and get creativity back. And I agree, I liked the simplicity of flying just paper airplanes and trying to see how they fly, and his future wife they're interacting with, and it kind of develops their relationship, because this is after they've been reintroduced. They met when they were much younger. He helped her, and I'm not sure if it's like a housekeeper or like an escort, like her someone who's in charge of her, a woman, like after an earthquake, and they meet again, and so they're redeveloping their relationship as an adult. And I thought it was really well done, and I thought it established several things at the same time.
Yeah. I didn't have a favorite line that I wrote down.
I wrote one down right at the end. Okay. So the last scene of the film is him. He's been having dreams with this Italian aircraft maker. Mm-hmm. I can't remember the guy's name. Count Cristo, or Count of Monte Cristo.
Yeah.
And basically he's like, they're talking about how like none of his airplanes came back. He basically just got like a field of death, post World War II. And he says that airplanes are beautiful cursed dreams waiting for the sky to swallow them up. And I don't know if that's the exact phrasing of the quote, because I wrote it down as it was being said. But I thought that was really poignant and an interesting way to display like people who are creating aircrafts, and like, again, how things that can have such beauty are used for bad or war or destruction. Yes. So I thought that summed up pretty well like one of the themes of this movie.
Yeah. I went with favorite Ghibli. It's kind of like a mix. It's like just all the dream sequences.
I picked the exact same thing too. Yeah.
I liked how they like kept the animation close enough that sometimes you couldn't tell if it was a dream sequence right at the beginning. But I mean, the music, Joe Hisaishi coming back is like, I mean, he's obviously very talented, and we've talked about him many, many times.
Right.
But yeah, all the music paired really well, and I just thought it was interesting to see like how he envisioned things, and you got more of his character through his dreams. So I just really enjoyed that. Yeah,
I picked the exact same thing. The dream sequences were all very well done, and especially the first one, like when he's a boy, I really liked that being the opening, and a lot of the color used is really well done, and the animation was super crisp. Yes. Looked good, looking clean lines. I liked the use of those throughout the film. Like, I think there's maybe 4 or 5
there's
throughout the course of the film. So I enjoyed that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, a good film.
Good.
I approve. All right. On to our next one.
Next movie, Alyssa, is The Tale of the Princess Kaguya.
Kaguya, yeah.
Kaguya.
Princess Kaguya.
This movie came out in 2013, rated PG, runtime of 2 hours and 16 minutes, 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, and an 8 out of 10 on IMDb. And the box office was $27 million. All this information, again, is from most trusted source on the web. Wikipedia.
You get those letterbox rating?
You know what? I actually did not. I fumbled the bag on that.
You fumbled the bag.
Would you
I
like
can
to
look
pull
it
it
up
up
right now.
real quick for us?
Sure. I'd love to pull it up right now.
Cool.
It is a 4.2 out of 5.
Okay. Pretty solid. Okay, so this movie was co-written and directed by Isao Takahata. A little fumble the mouth there.
Little early recording fumble there.
Yes. It is it's an adaptation of The Tale of the Bamboo Cutter, which was a 10th century Japanese literary tale. Oh my god. Words are hard. Literary tale. It was the final film to be directed by Takahata, who sadly passed away in April of 2018. You think that's funny?
So embarrassing. I'm so sorry. I'm just laughing because Hannah is fumbling so hard. And then you're like, and he tragically passed away after making this film while I'm laughing. I'm so sorry.
Yes.
We've talked about it. It is truly a tragic death.
Yes. Okay. So this movie had a budget of $49.3 million. And I've read that it is the most expensive Japanese film to date. Budget-wise.
I can believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so it received critical acclaim and was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature at the 87th Academy Awards. So a little background on this tale. So Takahata read this tale he read the tale the movie was based on as a child. And he had recalled that he struggled to relate and sympathize with the protagonist. He reread the tale when he was older and realized that the story's potential to be entertaining, or the story had potential to be entertaining as long as an adaptation allowed the audience to understand how the princess felt from her perspective. So he began working on this film in 2008. And this movie was financed by this group called Nippon, Nippon. Mm-hmm. And the chairman at the time gave $40 million towards the project. Unfortunately, he died before the movie came out, so he never got to actually see the finished product.
That's unfortunate.
So originally there was supposed to be a different composer on this film, but Joe Hisaishi replaced him. And this was the only time that he had scored a film directed by Takahata.
I was going to say, I had saw in the credits that he composed the music, and I wasn't sure. I was like, I don't know if he's done any of his films, because he usually works with Miyazaki specifically.
Yeah, so that was his first and last time, because,
right,
this was the last film that Takahata directed. Okay, so this movie was initially supposed to be released simultaneously with The Wind Rises.
Yeah.
But delays in production prevented that. It would have been the first time they had done that since Grave of the Fireflies and My Neighbor Totoro. Yeah. Okay, so this film debuted at first place during its opening weekend in Japan. And it was the 11th top-grossing Japanese film of 2014. It was the first film of the decade to receive an approval rating of 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, though.
Yeah.
So, took 3 years for a film to get 100%. Okay, so a summary. A mysterious young princess enthralls all who encounter her, but ultimately she must confront her fate. And that is from Max, the best streaming app I've ever seen in my life.
And no hint of sarcasm detected there at all.
It's not hard at all to stream to a TV and get those subtitles to appear.
Nope.
Nope.
Before we get started, I just have a question. Do you know what won the year this came out?
You know what?
Because I was wondering, because this is 2013, I was curious if it was the year Inside Out won.
Yeah, let me see, because it didn't actually even say, and I should have looked it up.
Because I know this didn't win, because I've definitely looked at the list of movies that won, and I was wondering if this is the year Inside Out won, because that's probably the only film that I would accept beating this film. So that's why I was curious, like what happened that year? What was it?
Okay, so the nominees were this movie, Song of the Sea, How to Train Your Dragon 2, The Box Trolls, and Big Hero 6 ended up winning.
Big Hero 6?
Yes.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, that changes everything. Because I was like, if it's the year Inside Out came out, then yeah, I considering that's my second favorite Pixar film, then yeah, I can accept that. But not that there's anything wrong with Big Hero 6, but
yeah,
that feels like a real fumble.
Yeah, Inside Out came out in 2015, so
2015. Okay,
after.
A little bit later.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Big Hero 6 is like a decent movie, but I don't think necessarily an Academy Award worthy movie.
Yeah, because I've seen How to Train Your Dragon 2.
I haven't seen that movie.
It's a solid movie. I've actually seen the last 20 minutes of The Box Trolls. While it's cute, I wouldn't give it a win.
Right.
I think if there's a film that someone could go out on as their final film ever, I feel like this is a very strong choice.
Yeah.
In terms of style alone, like art style, animation style, it's incredibly... I can almost see a little bit of the influence from My Neighbor the Yamadas, like the kind of like more like line watercolor type animation style that we saw a little bit of there. Clearly this is less comedic and more serious. I mean, it's a really good movie. It's a really uniquely good movie. I think it's a little too long, and it's a little messy in the middle. I think the plot drags a little bit in the middle of the movie. But my God, if this isn't some of like the best animation I've ever seen in my life. Like some of the scenes, and I'll get to one scene in particular, but it's like stunning how like well done, and I can understandably see why this is the most expensive film ever produced in Japan. Like I can get why that is the case. Just as my general overall thoughts to start.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I really like the movie. I think it's an interesting story that hasn't necessarily been done by Ghibli before. Like there's maybe parts of it that have been done before, but it feels like uniquely its own. And I think I had a little bit of an issue, more so not even the movie, but I think just with... It's not even an issue with the writing, because it's like how people were in the time period and like how women were viewed, and like the men are shitty, which shocker. The music was really good, the animation was really good, the ending was unexpected and not how endings usually go, which was kind of a nice twist. Overall it was like a very solid film. I do wish maybe it was a little bit shorter. There was parts in the middle, like you said, where it was a little bit kind of dragged.
Slow.
Yeah, it kind of dragged a little bit. But yeah, I thought overall it was actually like a very solid film, and I did enjoy it.
Yeah, I think what you said about like being upset about certain aspects of the film, I think certainly there were periods in the movie where I was just like uncomfortable. But again, it's like this is a tale from a completely different time, like hundreds of years ago. So having to look at that through that scope means that it's like it's not unreasonable for the time frame that it was in.
Right.
And yeah, because there's one point where this guy just like comes up and grabs her from behind. I'm like, I was like, no.
Yeah.
Stop. I was like, I'd hate that. I was like, excuse me. How rude. But then she disappears. So, I was like, that seems about right.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
Show that emperor.
yeah, because at the beginning I was like, when she was like little and she was going really fast, there was like that guy like who I thought maybe was like a love interest, and I was like, this better not be like a Jacob imprinting like situation.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want that. But yeah, I don't know. It was kind of giving me like Princess Diary vibes for a little bit.
Yeah.
In like the montage of like her training to
Yeah, or like My Fair Lady, like
Yeah.
that kind of like taking someone and like turning them, take this and give you a princess.
Yeah.
It gives a lot of that vibe.
Yeah, but I just liked there was a lot of like symbolism. Like there was like this red and white dress she had like in a dream sequence, and then she's actually wearing it later on. Like, I liked the parallels, and I liked the different parts of this story. Like, I felt like it flowed pretty well. Like, it wasn't confusing, and I feel like sometimes a movie of that nature could get confusing if not done properly, and we've seen it before in some of the movies we've done, not like for Ghibli specifically, but just overall in this podcast. So I thought they did a good job of making it clear enough, like, what part was not, like, different aspects and, like, different parts. I appreciated that.
Yeah, like, the progression I thought was well done. I just more had a problem with some parts I felt like took a little too long or went on a little longer than they needed to. But the progression between different parts of the story I thought, like, went smoothly and flowed well. Because I liked having the different parts of this, of her life, like, the first, like, her as a small child taking on the form of, like, a baby, and then, like, learning to be a child. Learning to be a child. My throat closed up. And then this part where her dad decides that she's going to be a princess. She's going to be a royalty because he's found gold in the bamboo and is going to build a mansion, like a large home, and then, like, teach her to be royalty.
Right.
And there's a lot of sadness.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, like, I feel like isolation, themes like isolation, loneliness. I really liked the relationship between her and her mom. I thought was really interesting and really well done. The supportiveness of that. Like, a lot of the personal relationships I liked a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of those aspects. Like, while I could understand the relationship between her and her dad, it was frustrating.
Right.
It was really frustrating when, the fact that he just couldn't understand what made her happy, right? Like, he didn't have that concept. Like, for instance, I'll just go to skip just because it kind of correlates to what we're talking about. But the line that I liked the best is she's talking to her dad, and she says, like, all this happiness that you wish for me has been very hard to bear. Like, basically being like, I want to make you happy, but this is not, like, I am not happy. I want to make you happy, but this does not make me happy.
Yeah, it's interesting because I almost feel like the ending feels satisfying in a way, because
I agree.
She was so unhappy with, not really with her mother, but with her father and with this life he, like, pushed on her, that I feel like her getting to be free from that is almost, it makes it not as hard. Like, I didn't necessarily feel sad for the parents that she was leaving. It was kind of like this feeling of, like, oh, this is different, but this is kind of, like, nice, because in a way she's getting to, like, leave the life that she didn't love and be someone, or, like, be someone else, go somewhere else. So I kind of enjoyed that aspect.
Yeah
Yeah.
I will say there was some children singing in this film, but the actress they got for her could actually sing, so I didn't hate it in the grand scheme. I thought I was gonna hate it, and I was like, okay, get a pass. Get a pass. Got someone who can sing. It's fine.
About the best you can get. A compliment from Melissa, so.
I mean, honestly, yeah. If I don't hate it, that's a pretty strong compliment.
Right.
Yeah, there's just, like, it was a lot.
Yeah.
I didn't really write a ton of notes because I just was very captivated and, like, engaged in the story and the art style, especially. I don't know if I have anything else really to say.
No, I think we can go into favorites.
Yeah.
Okay, so my favorite character was Kaguya.
Mm-hmm.
I think, again, it's one of those films where it's hard not to pick her because she's such the main focus, and you go through like her life and her journey, where it would be hard not to pick her, I feel like. But I just think above that, she's like compelling, and I liked kind of how she didn't totally buy into what her father wanted. Like, she tried, but she also like retained some of her power. Which was cool and good to see. And Ghibli's always done really well at doing strong female characters, and I think this is like another example of this character who's put in this position but still can find a way to like have some control.
Right.
So yeah, I liked her for those reasons.
Yeah, I picked her as well. I agree. You can't really not pick her when this whole story is very focused on her and her whole life, and this concept that she's not human. She's living, as a human, and it's very unclear for majority of the movie, like, what exactly she is, just that she appeared in a bamboo stalk at the beginning of the film. But I like this idea that, I guess, I don't know the right way to phrase it, but that this character it's implied that she's committed some type of crime.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't tell you what exactly that means, and that she was, like, kind of almost banished or sent away because of this crime. And I like that that's ambiguous, that it's not exactly clear at the end then why she must return to her home. And I agree. I like that she, like, tries to make her parents happy, but also, like, has boundaries and wants to do things her way by having these suitors and making them find things that don't exist to win her love. I think is interesting and a kind of different twist on like that type of story, So I really liked her as a character, and I liked her sense of like, it's kind of like Ariel in The Little Mermaid, like her sense of wonder and discovery of like when she goes to the human world and she can't talk and she's just like experiencing all these things. I kind of felt that similar kind of feeling with Kaguya as well, like when she's kind of like learning about things.
Yeah. Okay, favorite line, I didn't really write it word for word, but it's the scene where, like, all the men come and, like, are bidding to whatever, and she, like, basically says that, like, she's treasure, and that in order for them to, like, be with her, they have to go find these, like, obscene things and have to go get them, and I just like the way that she, like, delivered it, and all the men were just, like, stunned and like, what? We can't find that.
Right.
And she's like, well, I'm treasure, so you're gonna find it.
If I'm an exquisite treasure, then you have to find the thing that you think I am.
I'm like, and that's how you play the system.
Prove my love.
Yeah.
Go fight a cloud rain dragon in the ocean.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, so I did my favorite line a bit earlier.
Yes.
So I won't do it again just because I don't want to repeat myself.
Yeah.
In terms of favorite scene and Ghibli moment, it's the same.
Okay.
It's the same scene. So it's when they have her, like, naming ceremony, and then all these men come, and it's basically, like, her sitting, just, like, waiting. She's not involved in any way, shape, or form. This party's for her, and she's not in the party or anything like that. And basically she, like, overhears some of the men talking about how she's, like, not a real princess. And then there's almost this like incredibly raw emotion where she, like, runs away into the night, and the animation style changes, and, like, the audio is, like, almost non-existent, and it's almost like it's, like, feral like and, like, incredibly raw, and it's definitely, I think, the best animation out of the studio, and might be one of the best animated sequences I've ever seen, like, in my life. It was so captivating and so well done. I was, like, blown away. Like, truly, that gave my own personal rating of this film an extra half star just for that scene alone, because I thought it was just so incredibly good. So it was my favorite, like, Ghibli moment and, like, my favorite scene, just because I was blown away at how good it was.
Yeah, that's my favorite Ghibli moment as well. Like, it was, as soon as it happened, I immediately wrote it down, and I was like, this animation looks so good. Like, there's very little, there's no words, it's all music, and it's very soft music, so you really just get to focus on, like, the animation itself. I think that was probably my favorite scene too, but I also did like right at the end where she's like going away on the cloud, and there's like a moment where she like turns and looks back, like just for a moment, and then like faces forward again. And I thought that was very like symbolic of like not look like one last look at her past life and then like just moving forward. The scene, I think it was my favorite scene as well, but if I'm picking like a different one, that's what I would pick.
Yeah. This movie had a lot of if that had not existed in the film, there are so many other like little moments that I really liked as well. Like, you know, there's this part where she like sneaks out and goes to see the the cherry blossoms, and it's just like spinning on this hill and like laughing, and it's, you know, she's very much in spirit of how she was more towards the beginning of the film. And then like this child bumps into her, and then this like mother and her children are like, oh my god, this is like, you know, I'm so sorry, like we didn't want to disturb you, like please like have forgiveness on us, you know. And then they like run away, and she's just like comes back to reality of like her position. And like that scene I really liked. Or like the scene where it's like almost like a dream sequence with this guy that was her childhood friend of hers, like that they had reconnected and were like flying, and like there were a lot of like really well done small scenes that like otherwise would have probably been like a favorite moment. So there's a lot of, this movie did small moments really, really well, I felt like.
I agree. Yeah.
Let's move on to the next film. All right, so next film in the list is When Marnie Was There, which was rated PG, has a runtime of 1 hour and 43 minutes, and was released in 2014. So this is a Japanese animated psychological drama film, according to Wikipedia, our most trusted source, which I thought was a weird way to describe this film.
Psychologically, it did mess me up, so that's kind of accurate.
Yeah, you know, and I just thought that was so interesting, like the choice of words with that, so I wanted to write it down. It was co-written and directed by Hiromasa Yonbayashi, and I probably butchered his name, but he was the director of The Secret World of Arrietty. Okay, so basically what happens is the Studio Ghibli shuts down after this movie is done for a number of years. I think like 5 or 6 years it shut down for a hot minute. And a lot of the animators left, so this director left to go to Studio Panak. Or Panak, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but just so he's not with the studio anymore, which is why it's not a form of the studio in directing anything new.
Good.
Because it was shut down. Anyway, so this is based on the novel by the same name by author Joan G. Robinson. She's a British author, and the book was released in 1967. And so the plot of this movie was moved from Britain to be in Japan, the setting of the story. It grossed 3.85 billion yen, which is equal to $36 million in US money. And it was also, just of note, it was the final work done by animator Makiko Futaki. And I think I might have mentioned her when we did our overall Studio Ghibli background of the studio. So she was involved with a lot of their movies, including My Neighbor Totoro, Spirited Away, Princess Mononoke. Hayao Miyazaki referred to her as a valuable asset and someone he could trust. And she unfortunately passed away, I think, in 2017. So it was her final work as well at the studio. Miyazaki loved this book, the book that this movie is based off of. And so he suggested that Yonbayashi adapt a version of this into a movie. This movie was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature. Oh, I see. And I wrote a note, parentheses, lost to Inside Out. So I was just a year off. I was a year off. That's why I was like, Inside Out. And it's because I read about it. So it was nominated. It lost to Inside Out. It has a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes, a Metacritic score of 72 out of 100, 7.6 out of 100 on IMDb. Sorry, 7.6 out of 10.
It's like 100. Are we doing
out of
ratings?
10 on IMDb, and then 3.8 out of 5 on Letterboxd. So now for the summary. When Anna moves to the seaside to live with her aunt and uncle, she discovers an old mansion and the mysterious young girl, Marnie, who lives there.
I've been queer-baited a lot.
Queer bait.
I've been queer-baited a lot. This was by far the weirdest queer bait I've ever been queer-baited by.
I wrote so many notes about this film. Now, the trajectory of my thoughts of what was happening.
Yeah.
So first of all, I said LGBT Ghibli film.
Yeah.
Then I said, is this a time traveling movie? Are they in parallel timelines? And then I said, it's a bit awkward thinking they were gay, but nope, just family. Also classic mid-2010s queer baiting.
Yeah. If you have not seen this movie, this is all you need to know, I wrote. This is the gayest and cutest shit. And then I said, I don't know what's real and what isn't. Wait, I'm sorry. Marnie was Anna's grandma. Weirdest queer bait I've ever seen. This really took a turn I didn't expect. Here I was thinking we would get gay. But no. Basically,
Yeah. It's
it's weird that the scenes
way-
they chose to do.
So here's my thing. I am so curious about the way this book is written, right? Because is this a creative liberty they took? Not necessarily that they're related, but the way they portray their relationship on screen comes across as not as romantic to me.
Comes out as
at
very
least.
gay.
You know, they're talking about how they love each other, and like in retrospect, it makes sense because if it is her grandmother, then yeah, it would make sense that they would love each other, but not in that way.
No, and like there was a scene where I said Anna's having a full gay panic moment, and let me tell you, I've had those moments, and that's what I saw on the screen. So,
and there was like blushing and like
Yes.
showing them blushing.
the scenes
and,
where they held hands.
yeah, and dance.
I've
they
never
danced
held
together.
I've never held Ruth's hand like that before. Never. I'm just saying. You can't tell me
Oh my
that there
God.
was no intention. You even read a review someone said that they like we're not the only two people who think that this
No,
is the case.
it's I when I went to go do the background of this film, let me see on Google. I typed in this film onto
Yes.
Google, and I think one of the first searches was
Alyssa showed
Is
me
it-
a review someone wrote.
yeah, I did.
And it's
The first thing is people ask is when Marnie was here, which is it's not even the title of the
Yeah.
movie, but is when Marnie was here LGBT
no.
was something they said. It's a very common
Right.
thing that
Also-
people are interpreting this. Like even more so okay, now Ocean Waves was a stretch. It was a stretch.
We just wanted
I saw it, I wanted it, but you could still reasonably say that they're just friends.
Right.
And it's not undertones of gay going on there. But this one was to me, very apparent from the beginning, from the get-go. And I was very surprised and shocked when the twist was revealed and their family. It's her grandmother's spirit
Yes.
coming to the present to be with her because she died and left her an orphan. And therefore she's trying to make amends through her spirit of a young child version of herself in the house she used to live in. There's a lot of questions here. I mean, that aside, I did think it was a good movie.
Here's my problem.
Like, aside from that plot point, like, I otherwise liked it.
My problem is this. This whole movie, I was like, oh, they're in love. Like, this is so cute. This is like a cute little summer romance story.
Yeah.
And I wrote down all these favorite moments, thinking that was the case. And then when it turned into her grandma, all my favorite moments were ruined.
I mean, can they not be favorite moments?
No, because they were cute because it was like the romance aspect.
Okay.
So it ruined all my favorite moments and then just ruined the movie.
Okay.
So all I
Okay.
can think about when I think about this movie is that I was queer baited.
Okay.
So
Can you think about the movie outside of that? Can you try to?
I mean, I wrote down a favorite scene, but now it seems weird.
I mean, that's fine. You can still have it a favorite scene.
I mean, I guess the movie was fine until it wasn't. I did like it until it wasn't what I wanted it to be.
Yeah. Like, I like that we get a shit main character. I like that we start with her, like, she doesn't have self-confidence. She thinks very little of herself. She's a sickly, she's got asthma. Gotta get sent away to the seaside like every young child of Victorian times. You get sick, you go to the seaside, you get some fresh air. She calls a girl a fat pig, which I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, that was messed up.
I watched this one in English, so...
Yeah, I did too.
It was interesting. I was like, I like definitely didn't pick up on some of the voices. Like they weren't like necessarily like immediately known, where I was like, yep, that's that person. Which is nice. I appreciate that. But I thought it was interesting to show that perspective, like this kind of lonely character who's like kind of coming into herself, gaining confidence, learning about her past because she's a foster child, right? And that is a story I don't think they've, that they haven't told before. So I liked that like aspect of the plot, basically presenting like family aspects of family can be different depending on different things and
right,
and community and stuff like that. And it was a bit more character focused, very like specifically character focused, and not much else going on in the story outside of the characters. And I kind of liked that as well, that it was pretty, I say the word simplistic, not like in terms of just general, like the way the story went, and not the fact that she is in love with her grandmother. That's not simplistic. That's a bit rough. The ghost of her grandma's past. Ghost of girlfriend's past. She's the ghost of Christmas past, Hannah.
I feel like if they would have not made it queerbaity, it could have been a good movie, but the problem is that you're watching it thinking it's one thing, and then all of a sudden it's not. And I'm like, if they had just kept the whole movie so that it didn't seem that way, I think it would have been more intriguing.
Yeah, I guess the other thing to keep in mind, Hannah, the lens of when this movie came out, 2014. Legend of Korra hadn't even had its finale yet. I think that was in 2015 or late 2014, and they couldn't even acknowledge that they were gay, like, other than holding hands and looking longingly into each other's eyes,
Right, but there's no need in this movie because it's her grandma.
But I'm saying, so I don't think the intention was to portray, I'm saying I don't think they intended to portray them as being, like, romantically involved. I think that they just didn't, I think the undertones were too strong. In a modern audience, I think, yeah, if you're writing it that way and showing it that way, then it's intended to be, like, they're in love, they have feelings for each other. But I think in this lens and also through Japan, I'm guessing that they just wanted to show there's a closeness and not intending it for it to be gay.
Yeah, but Ghibli's done so many relationships, like friendships or like daughter, grandmother, like they do those relationships and they never do it like that. So why this movie? Why do they have to? And also, you're going to sit there and tell me that they didn't think that this would be portrayed that way? They were
in 2014...
Yeah, which makes me think they queerbaited and then they changed the plot on purpose.
I mean, it was a book before it was a movie.
I don't give a shit.
I still think it's queerbaiting, but I don't think it was intended to be queerbaiting. I think they just took it too far. I don't know. I'd get the feeling that Japan is not, like, I guess I don't know, but I don't think in 2014 they were strong allies of the LGBT community.
So, my favorite character was Anna because she was gay and I relate. That's it.
Okay, well, my favorite character is Anna because she's gay and I don't relate.
Okay. My favorite line was after she called the girl a fat pig. The girl's mom came to the house that she was staying at and said... She called her a name, and then she pulled a knife out.
I thought that was so ridiculous.
And the lady was like, I highly doubt that. I just was like, the way that she jumped from one line to the next, it was funny.
I didn't necessarily have, like, a favorite line, but I did like the fact that I mean, it was uncalled for to call this girl a fat pig.
Yeah.
But then her mom's like, and then she pulled a knife out at the celebration. I also thought it was funny.
Yeah.
As well.
I mean, my favorite scene was when they were dancing outside of the party, because I thought it was, like, really simple and romantic.
Yeah.
I guess I liked it because it was simple, and we'll take out the romantic part because that's no longer true.
The scene that I liked is kind of like where they're kind of bonding in the woods, you know, like they're like it's like them talking over like background shots. So it's like they're like walking through like the marsh area, and then they're like walking in the woods, and they're just talking about like life and stuff and connecting. And I thought that was like a good way to establish their relationship.
Yeah.
As characters.
Yeah. Ghibli moment, there was this music that played in the final scene that I really liked, so I picked that because of the song.
Yeah, I like that too. I also just liked the overall shots of like this like mansion on the lake, and the way they like framed like sunrise, sunset, and like the view like while they're painting it and stuff. There's like this painting woman who is friends with her grandmother that she meets. And, like, they both are drawing the mansion. So I liked, like, all those, like, long shots of the house and, like, the framing and everything like that. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I think it couldn't get much worse, but sadly it can. Next movie is Earwig and the Witch. Movie came out in 2020. It is rated PG, had a runtime of 1 hour and 22 minutes. 28% on Rotten Tomatoes, a 4.8 out of 10 on IMDb, and a 2.1 out of 5 on Letterboxd. Grossed $842,000. Didn't even hit $1 million, which is pretty fair. Okay. This movie was directed by Goro Miyazaki. The screenplay was by Kiko Niwa and Emi Gunji. It was based off a novel of the same name by Diana Wynne Jones, who unfortunately passed away before the novel was finished.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So this was the first full 3D computer-generated animated film by the studio. And in June of 2020, images from the film were shown to Toshio Suzuki and Hayao Miyazaki. At this point, they told Goro that they had faith in him and told him to go with the concept of the images. And after this point, he never consulted either the two of them again and worked with a young staff. Like Alyssa said, the studio had shut down for a while. All the original people left, so they had a very young staff when this movie came out. He worked with them to complete the anime, and yeah, we'll leave it at that. The composer for this film was Satoshi Takabe. And this movie was supposed to premiere at the 2020 Cannes Film Festival, but was canceled due to the pandemic. Mm-hmm. There's very little background on this movie, as it turns out, but it's received mostly negative reviews. Like I said, the author died before the novel was released, or before she had finished the novel, so it's kind of a quick ending with the novel, and the movie kind of takes that same route. I thought since I couldn't find much background, I would read you a review.
Okay. Also, I just like to, I might have missed it because I looked down for a little bit. But the author of this novel is also the same author of Howl's Moving Castle.
Oh, yes. I forgot to say that.
Okay. I wasn't sure if you'd said that or not, but I was like, that's a fun tidbit of information that I learned while learning about it. Yes, I'd love to hear a review.
So this is David Ehrlich from IndieWire, who I think we've read some of his reviews before.
I think we have. He
gave the film a C- rating and said, "While Earwig and the Witch is far from the ugliest film of its kind, there's something uniquely perverse about seeing Ghibli's signature aesthetic suffocated inside a plastic coffin and sapped of its brilliant soul. About seeing the studio's lush green words replaced by lifeless backdrops and its hyper-expressive character design swapped out for cheap dolls so devoid of human emotion that even the little kids look Botoxed within an inch of their lives. This is the cartoon equivalent of that botched Jesus fresco, only lacking the human touch that gave the debacle some perverse charm of its own."
Okay, I don't want to spend too long bashing this film. Continue, please.
Yeah, that was his review, and unfortunately, I kind of agree with it. A little bit harsh, but
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I don't want to beat a dead horse,
Yeah, let me
Well,
just do
it's
the
down.
summary, and then we can,
Oh, you didn't even get to the summary?
No, that was just.
Oh, God,
That was his summary.
Yes.
Here is
All right,
the
sorry.
summary from Max. Earwig has no idea that her mother had magical powers, and her life takes an unexpected turn when a family forces her to live with a selfish witch.
This movie's bad. It's the Cars 2 of the studio. It was rough to watch. Hannah and I watched this together. We started in Japanese, and the lip flapping, like, matching was so bad. And it was so hard to concentrate because the animation was so distracting of how unsettling it was that we had to switch to English. It was also unsettling in English as well. Let's be honest. I don't want to shit on Goro Miyazaki, because I feel like he already gets that enough from everyone in his life for various reasons, This wasn't it.
No, I love how you said I don't want to shit on him, and I literally wrote a list of things that sucked about this movie.
I mean, you can shit on him. I just don't want to personally. I feel bad. I feel bad,
Here's what I'll say. Ghibli is so well known for a lot of things, and I think this film, unfortunately, a lot of the things that Ghibli excels in, like the review said that I read, like, none of it was good in this film. Like, even like a food scene. Ghibli's so good at doing these amazing food scenes, and the food in this movie looked horrible. Yeah. The sound mixing was really bad. We've never really had an issue with sound mixing.
Yeah.
With Ghibli. Fast and Furious, we had a ton of issues with sound mixing, but with Ghibli, we've never had that issue.
Yeah.
The story was just not really there. The animation, Alyssa said it looked like Jimmy Neutron animation.
It looks like Jimmy Neutron, yeah. It was rough.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, if this had come out in, like, mid-2000s, maybe up to 2010, it wouldn't necessarily look out of place. It wouldn't look good, but it wouldn't be out of place. But then, like, the thing I have to think about is that this film came out in 2020 when things such as Into the Spider-Verse and Soul came out.
Yep.
Like, equivalent films that came out right around the same time. And if you just, like, Encanto was 2020, I think, as well.
Right. And
it's just, like, if I put all these things next to each other, this is going to stick out like a sore thumb.
Well, and, like
oh.
Here's the thing, like, we're talking about compared to other studios, but we've seen Studio Ghibli's work. We've seen movies from the 80s, from the 90s that look so much better. And we've seen, we just talked about the last movie, or 2 movies ago, how it was, like, some of the best animation we've ever seen. Yeah. And then to put this out and just, like, when you have a school project and you're so tired of it at the end that you're like, nah, this is good. And you're just kind of like, it's not my best work, but, like, I'll put it out there.
Yeah.
But then you also put this out to millions and millions of people, and...
Yeah. I kind of think this is part of the reason why Hayao Miyazaki came out of retirement to make one last film. Because...
to save it.
As we've talked about, The Boy and the Heron is coming out.
Yeah.
In English, at least. We're recording this at the end of November. This episode probably won't come out for a bit. Right. But... we're going to be seeing the new movie in theaters. We've finally caught up to present day. It's 2023, baby. Yeah. We got a 2D animated film coming out.
Yeah. Like, can you imagine if this had been their actual last film?
Yeah. Insane. Like, if Cars 2 was the last film Pixar ever put out, like, that's sour. That leaves a sour note. But it's, you can move past a blip. It's just a bad little blip.
Well, yeah. And that's why I've seen the trailer for the new movie, and I have a lot more faith, and, like...
It's also reviewing and scoring very well.
Right, and, like, I get maybe you want to try something different, you want to try this 3D style and mix it up, but like you said, that kind of animation was coming out, like, Ice Age. Like, that was the kind of animation you were getting, and that's also from a studio that wasn't that well known and didn't have that much money, so it's like... I just don't know how this movie got, like, how people were like, yeah, this is fine, let's put this out. Like, I'm not putting it all on
oh, no, not on Goro.
Because I think
there's
a lot of other people who are involved in this. And even for, like, his father and this other guy to be like, yeah, this is fine, like, let's roll this in. Granted, that was, like, early images, but I just think there needed to be someone to say, like, hey, maybe we delay this a bit.
Maybe we need more or maybe we need more polish.
Right. Maybe we go back to the drawing board, literally.
Yeah.
Well, computer. They were so go back to the drawing board on the computer.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know how. You know when you see a commercial on TV and you're like, who approved this?
Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel. It's like, who kind of let this go through?
It just needed so much more polish.
Yeah.
It was funny. You said at one point that it looked like an ad for a mobile game.
Yeah.
And it's like the hair. Like the hair was
like
Play-Doh-y.
What's Grandma hiding in her
house,
room?
like secret attic or whatever, where you have to puzzle game.
I think it's kind of unacceptable for a studio that well known and that like revered to produce something like this in this day and age in 2020.
Yeah.
If this movie had come out like in the time frame, maybe it'd be like, okay, they were trying to match what everyone else was doing at the time. But I just think it's kind of unacceptable for a studio that has that high bar to put something out like this.
I agree.
That's kind of how I feel.
I think what's hard is like if this movie had just terrible animation but a good story, then you can kind of work with that. But this is both looks bad and the story really doesn't do anything.
It also doesn't fully make sense.
Like, I understand. Here's the thing. I understand that if you are adapting from a source material that doesn't really have an end because the author died while writing it, I understand that. But if you were going to then adapt that into a movie, I would think that you'd want to take creative liberties to kind of decide on an ending that makes sense.
Yes.
And in the terms of this movie, the ending just kind of happened. And we were like, what?
Because I told Alyssa there was like 8 minutes left and there was like nothing had happened. And I was like, what? It just, I don't know. I just, there was a lot of issues.
Yeah, like I don't even think we've even talked about any of the plot stuff. The girl Earwig was incredibly annoying character. I really didn't like her. I liked the Mandrake, I guess, if I had to pick one character.
Yeah, he was my favorite.
I read that they had added like the fact that like the band, the fact that her mom and the people she's staying with were in a band together, that wasn't part of the book. That was added to the film. And I'm like, at least that's a nice addition.
Right.
Like I liked, that was pretty much the only stuff that I did like was related to like the band members and like that past. But again, we didn't get very much with that. We just got like a little tidbit.
Right.
So I liked that aspect. But a lot of things were just not interesting.
Yeah.
Did not look good. Did not sound good at times. I didn't really care about any of these characters.
Yep.
I didn't really care for this movie in general.
Yeah.
So I think on that note.
Yeah.
I didn't have any favorites.
No, if I had to pick a favorite character, it'd be the Mandrake.
Mandrake.
My favorite scene because as a joke, I said she had like this doll, like what is it called? Like a voodoo.
She basically made like equivalent like a voodoo doll,
right? Like a voodoo doll, and she like makes these arms, and I was like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if she made it come out of her asshole? And she literally does. So I thought that was funny that I couldn't get
that. Yeah, I hate it was like, because she was like gonna give her, she needs an extra, basically she kept saying like, I got you from the orphanage to be an extra pair of hands. And she's like, I'll give you an extra pair of hands. And it was like, wouldn't it be funny if she put it in her ass?
And she did.
And then she did. She put it on, she squeezed her
out of her asshole.
It was that part, I agree, that was funny.
But yeah, besides that, I didn't have any. I mean, I can't even pick a Studio Ghibli moment because none of it was...
I mean, there is, and I don't mean to be rude, there is nothing, not a single moment in this film that I think I could say is a Studio Ghibli moment.
Yeah.
Because it's just not warranted.
No.
Yeah. And I hope Goro is doing okay, you know? I hope, like, he didn't take this and, like... things go wrong sometimes, right? We all make mistakes. Things don't always turn out the way we want them to. Like, for instance, he did Tales from Earthsea, which was okay. It didn't really review well. It didn't score very well. But then he came back and did Up from Poppy Hill, and that one was, like, well received, and people liked that. So, like, I know he can direct. It's just a matter of figuring out the rest, you know? Making sure everything else seems good before you put out a product. So, I hope he's doing okay. At peace, you know?
Okay.
But yeah, that's that movie. We have finally caught up. We've watched 23 movies in about a year and a half. 23. We did it. We got through the catalog. Everything that is out on HBO Max, we've watched.
Yep.
We've reviewed. And now we just have one film left. The Boy and the Heron. Hannah and I will be going to theaters. Be hitting up that movie theater one more time in 2023. I think this will be our third movie we've seen.
Yeah.
Specifically for the podcast in theaters. I actually am really excited.
Yeah.
I've debated whether or not I want to watch a trailer for this because I haven't yet. And I'm wondering if maybe I should just go in like I really don't know. I know the voice cast for the English because we'll have to see it dubbed in theaters. And I know I've seen like the theatrical poster, and I know the title, but I don't know anything else. So I kind of want to just go in blind and see it. Yeah. You have any other thoughts?
No, just we have our Instagram, our letterbox, email r3podcast@gmail.com. Yeah, and we will be back soon.
Yeah, we'll be back soon.
Bye.
Bye.
We would like to thank Joseph McDade for our intro music. He provides free music available for all kinds of creative use. The song that we used is called Sunrise Expedition, and you can find it and his other music on his website, josephmcdade.com. If you would like to reach us, you can email us at r3podcasts@gmail.com. That's R, the number 3, podcasts@gmail.com. Or you can find us on Instagram by searching Research Rank Repeat. Welcome.
I did it right when I was sniffing.
Okay. Gotta stop doing cocaine.
It's the original taste of Coke. I can't stop, won't stop.
Hannah's the devil. Ooh. Just know that Hannah and I did Taboo. And I didn't know you could not do charade signals, and my word was devil, so I did the Jan, like, ooh! And Hannah got it immediately, but it didn't get to count because I used not words. I did an expression, so it was very unfortunate, very sad, but I feel good about that aspect, that it was a distinguishable thing, that she knew what I was trying to express. So I like to have that known for everyone.